So my business is mostly wholesale flip and retail listings.
Okay. And how long have you guys been around? How many deals are you doing? What's the ratio of that? How many is on your team?
So I'm with a small group of three on the investment side and then 2 that assist me with the retail side. We're doing probably 80% is wholesale, 18% might be fix and flip, and then 2% is like traditional brokerage.
Okay, got it. So how many wholesale deals would that be in a year?
So we did 42 deals total this year. So I'd say wholesale is probably maybe like 36.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And what's your role on the team?
So I meet with sellers. So I sit just like this across from a table from them, hear about their woes, hear about what they got going on, and then I try to match them up with what's the best option for them. Obviously, I'm trying to give them a cash offer. And sometimes they don't need that, but I'm trying to meet their need with whatever they need.
And what's your official job title?
I guess it'd be home buying specialist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would that be similar to an acquisitions manager?
Yeah, just has the word specialist, so it makes it sound fancy.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds friendlier than acquisitions manager.
Right.
Home buying
specialist, I know exactly what I'm there for.
That's fantastic. So where do you find most of the people that you talk to?
So
who want to sell their house?
Right. So we do cold calling, and we do SEO, search engine optimization, and postcards. So this past quarter, we've gotten a lot from the cold calling front. So we've gotten a lot of leads from that. So people just answering a phone call, answering, yes, I would like to talk to somebody about selling my house, and then I'll meet them.
Who are the people that you're cold calling?
So we get our information from a vendor called Audantic, and they have some kind of like algorithm that says like who's more likely to sell or things like that. But we also do, county records as well as driving for dollars too.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
What do you look for when you're driving for dollars?
Traditionally, I guess things have happened a little bit different in our area, but traditionally, would be for a lot of cars on the front lawn, grass that's not kept, roof obviously looks like it's disheveled, like the home just looks like it's not really well cared for or abandoned. And in those cases, we'd definitely add those. But recently, we've just had a hurricane move through our city. So now it's actually a lot easier. Oh, look, there's a tree on that house. They might want to sell. So it's a lot easier to add driving for dollars leads right now.
What do you say? How does that phone call go?
So on a cold call, it would usually you try to keep it kind of generic. You don't want to make them feel too terribly targeted. So just saying, hey, we represent a group that buys homes in this area, and we are calling a lot of people in your area. We bought homes in that area. Would you have any interest in selling? We're talking with someone about selling.
Yeah, and if they say, no, not right now, where do you take the conversation from there?
Then we usually say, is it something that maybe you want to do in a year's time, 2 years' time, or are you pretty set? You're not going to sell it all. Sometimes they'll say, I might think about selling it at the beginning of the year or in a couple months. You put that on a list, call it again. If they say absolutely not, you still might call them a year later just to see if something changed.
So I know you meet with them at the home. Is that the first time you talk to them? Or do you make any of those calls or answer any of those calls from the mail?
Yeah, so we have a lead manager that she takes all of our inbound calls. So she's our first point of contact. So she's very friendly, very bubbly, really tries to meet their needs, like listen to them really well. Then she'll set an appointment for me. So the first time I meet them the first time I ever talk with them is usually just face to face when I'm knocking on their front door.
Got it.
Yeah.
What's your main accomplishment? Like, what's your main point when you're going on that list? Like, you've got a plan, right? You kind of come to the door with a plan.
My main goal is just to uncover what's most important to them. So I'm just trying to figure out how did they get here and what do they want the future to look like, and to see if I can help them with what that future looks like. Sometimes, based on what has happened, to get to that future, they'll need a cash sale, and so we'll be able to give them a cash offer. Sometimes things might be different. We might offer them to do like more of like a novation or like a retail buyer type thing, and then other times it might just be a traditional listing. So for me, it's just really hearing them out. Like, what's your story? How did you get here? And how can I help you to the next step?
How would you describe a novation to everybody who might not know what that is?
So we use, usually we never use the word novation because people, obviously an average seller would have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
But we'll use something more of like we'll call it like a retail buyer program or like an equity program. And we're essentially telling them, hey, you don't want the cash price, but you still want a lot of the convenience of not having to deal with repairs, negotiations, all of that. We'll tell them, hey, we're going to go ahead and list it, find a buyer, and we're going to negotiate with that buyer about specifically what repairs do they want made. So we're not having to spend the money to completely flip the home. It's just a few things here and there. So we're able to offer you a higher price because we're not flipping the entire home. We can pass that savings along to you. And then we also don't have to take the time and money and energy to completely flip a home. And then usually that buyer is getting a home they can actually afford a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a win for everyone across when we can do that.
In your position, how do you know if you're doing a good job? Obviously, you can't. Not everyone you talk to would want to sell their home, right? Sometimes you're not forcing people to sell their home. You're providing it for when they do, right? So how do you know if you're doing a good job in your role?
I guess it's more of like a soft feeling. There's an objective like have I got enough things under contract? But after I've left a seller's home, usually it's more of a soft skills feeling of if I felt like I really connected with you and there's nothing I can do for you after we've kind of moved it and tried to figure out the puzzle together and we couldn't make it fit, then I feel fine. I mean, I'm not going to be able to help everyone. I'm not the best fit for everyone.
Yeah.
But if I feel like I made that connection and there wasn't a deal to be had, then I feel satisfied.
Yeah, like you followed your process.
Exactly.
And the process ended with a result. But as long as you followed that process, then that was your job. And to do that with empathy, to do that in a thoughtful way, like that's kind of what I'm hearing. It's like how you've known you did a good job.
Yeah, exactly. For me, obviously the outcome's really nice. You do want a certain outcome, but I can't control that, but I can control my process. So as long as I've hit my process and I feel good about that, I'll feel good about the appointment.
How many appointments would you say you go on versus how many close or sell their house to you?
Usually it's probably, I'll go on 10 appointments and I'll get like 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how many people call in versus turn into appointments? Do you have any numbers on that? Because I know that happens with your lead manager. Yeah.
So our conversion to appointment ratio, I think, is usually we try to keep it like high 70s. Mm-hmm. So like around like 78% of.
So if 10 people call in, 7 make an appointment.
Yeah.
And if 7 make an appointment, maybe 1 of those closes.
Yeah.
Maybe 2.
Yeah, 1 or 2.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the breakdown of it.
Got it. Does it matter for you whether the lead came from mail or SEO or like when you meet them at their house, like do you have any care at all if they came from cold calling versus mail? Does that matter to you?
Traditionally, if I'm getting one that's coming from the website, it's usually a better lead because that's somebody that has sought out our services versus you can get a lot of look-see-loos who just call in because they got a postcard. Same thing with cold calling. They'll just like, yeah, sure, you can send somebody out. But I usually try to treat every lead the same. And so I try to give all of them the exact same effort. And, a lot of times it'll come up like, oh, well, how did you hear about us? And I'll let them, obviously I know, but I'll let them tell me. And, why you got that postcard? Why did you want to call us and have me come out here? Like, what were you hoping I could do for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you were able to suss out any people who are tire kickers or the looks you lose, like you said. Do you have any strategy for quickly figuring out if they're serious or not?
What we've been coaching our lead manager on is really more about, are they serious about selling? Not the price, not even sometimes the motivation, but if like they actually are saying, if someone comes out there and you agree on a price, would you actually go forward? Like, are you wanting to sell in the next
So they ask
3
that
months?
question.
Yeah. They're like, are you actually wanting to sell in the next 3 months?
Okay.
Or is it a year? Like,
do you have any idea what they say when the person says, well, they would never say no, or they might say something softer like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
So do they then cancel it? Do they kind of push away? Or do you have any idea what they say for people who are not giving a hard yes?
Yeah. So if they're on the lead manager's on that initial phone call, and they'll say, well, what's your timeline for selling? Are you wanting to sell in the next 3 months? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Then the lead manager will try to pull away a little bit and say, well, I mean, when we send out a home buying specialist, we're really serious about being able to help you sell your house. And I would hate to waste an hour of your time if you're actually not serious about selling your house, because it's going to be an hour, maybe an hour and a half meeting. So, you know, do you still want to meet him? Like, do you want to invest that time, or is it not that important to you? And we'll try to pull away a little bit and hopefully let people self-select of like, well, I was just hoping for an offer. You know, I was just hoping to get an idea of what it's worth. And like, okay, well, we probably wouldn't be a good fit for you. Here's the number to an appraisal company if you're really interested about that.
Yeah. What's like the hardest part, would you say, about doing this job?
The hardest part about meeting with sellers, I mean, there's definitely like an emotional toll that you get, like with hearing people that have like legitimate issues, and like you talk with people that are in very, very tough situations. Like there's people that they've had a parent die and they inherited this house and they're in a fight with their sister and the house is really wrecked and they're still paying a mortgage on behalf of their parents, or like there's a lot of things that are kind of going on that to do it right, like you've got to really sit with them in that. So, you know, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to like handle some of those heavy stuff, like when you're working with sellers.
Yeah. Do you have any strategy for just being able to take that in, but not kind of getting weighed down?
Yeah. I mean, you got to try to compartmentalize it a little bit, and, you know, you want to be fully available for them and like really feel it with them. But, you know, after you leave the appointment, you know, usually you want to just kind of close the book and move on to the next appointment, because usually I'm going right to the next appointment.
Oh God, how many appointments would you do?
So usually it's like 2 or 3 a day, because we do all of ours in person. So depending on where they're at, I mean, we cover, you know, a huge, like from end to end, it's like 2 hours to drive from one end of our market to the other. So, you know, depending on where those things are, I can usually fit like 2 or 3 in.
Okay. Let me switch gears a little bit. Like, do you feel like, was everyone in your office together all the time? You said you have retail side, investor side. Is everybody in the same office?
So basically our investor side, all of that's in one office. And then my wife's just come on to help me with the retail side. And then I also have a virtual assistant. So
is she selling properties that you find?
Yeah. So
who's buying these houses cash?
So buying houses cash, that's going to be like the investor arm. So we'll buy it, fix it up, or wholesale it, all on that side. If it is a true just brokerage relationship, then I'll get the listing agreement, and then she and my VA will help me service that and basically kind of help me run all that.
So sometimes a seller might truly just want to take the time, list it with an agent.
Correct.
And you can help them with that too.
Right.
Got it.
And that's the benefit of, like, you've already made that emotional connection, and you truly find out that either they can't or really don't want to sell it for an investor price. Then, you know, you've already built all that goodwill to just convert that into a listing.
Got it.
And still monetize the lead.
Got it. Well, that's pretty cool. Your wife's going to be helping you out with that.
Yeah.
Is she a new agent, or is she an agent coming from somewhere else?
She's a new agent. She just got licensed.
How big of a ordeal is that to become licensed?
Well, you have to take a 75-hour pre-licensing class, which you can do online or do in person. She did in person, so it's like she gave up her nights for like 2 months to be able to do all that. Pass the course exam, then pass the state exam, and then you can apply for the license. So,
what kind of questions are on the exam? Do you know? Have you been?
Yeah.
Have you gone through it?
Yeah, it's any agent would tell you that, like, the whole pre-licensing course is kind of just a box to check or a hoop to jump through. It doesn't tell you anything about actually running real estate.
Oh, what is it? What is it about?
I mean, it's
like contracts.
Yeah, I mean, it tells you like about agency, about like how property is owned. Like, it's all like good stuff to know, but if you didn't have any of that, you could probably still be a really good agent, because they'll even tell you in the exam, like, well, here's how you can transfer title. But if a seller asks you about that, you should refer them to an attorney, because the attorney is the actual expert on that.
Right.
So, you know, at least in my opinion, you can get by without actually worrying about that stuff.
A lot of wholesalers don't need to be licensed. Is there a reason why you guys have chosen to be licensed? Obviously, if she's helping on the retail side, that makes sense. But for you, it seems like you're mostly focused on the investor side. So
Right.
how come you have your license?
So I got my license because like I told you, I'd meet with 10 people and only buy 2 of their houses. But I met with 8 people that legitimately wanted to sell their house. So, if I was able to convert, even 2 or 3 of those, then that'd be, well worth paying all this stuff to be an agent.
Got it.
And then also being an agent, it's really helped me.
So you were listing it previously, and now your wife's helping list it.
Right.
Got it. So you really don't need your license at this point, but you just have it.
Right. And I do it so that I'm really involved with our realtor association. It's helped me make a lot of relationships with agents. And so because of that, it's helped me be able to find more leads of hey, they know what I do. They know what my main business is, and they'll refer to me. Hey, here's a dumpy house. See if it's something that you guys can do with.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any new things you're implementing in 2025?
New things. So we're going to be changing a few things on the CRM front. There's a few script changes that we're going to be doing. I would say probably one of our bigger changes is trying out a paper lead channel. So one of the reasons why we like that is kind of the very easy ability to kind of throttle how many leads you get. So, obviously with any marketing channel, you'll get undulations and cold calling worked really well this month. Maybe it doesn't work well next month. Direct mail worked well, but it didn't work now. So we're trying to go for a lot more even number of leads per week. And so we feel like PPL is, leads are a little bit lower this month. We can ramp it up. Or if we're getting enough leads, you're not locked into having to spend something on it. So that's kind of why we're looking at that.
So pay per lead is a company that kind of does their own marketing, and then they'll just sell you the lead, right?
Exactly.
What does the lead cost typically?
Well, it depends on the vendors. So they can cost $200, $300, $400. Depends on some of them. It's a bidding system. So you can say I only want to bid this much on a lead, and you'll be able to win all the leads that only go for that amount.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you think that those are any better or worse than you're generating your own leads with your own mail?
In general, I would say, sometimes they can be crappier leads, kind of like cold calling leads, just, ones that are further forward in the selling process. If you get an SEO, they're probably right at the very end, they're probably ready to sell in the next month or sooner. Mail, you can get kind of the spectrum, but I find cold calling paper leads usually end up being towards the front half of that seller's journey.
Well, that's good that you guys have exciting new script changes and more consistent lead in 2025. Can you tell me how you got involved with this in the first place?
So before I got into real estate, I was actually a high school chemistry teacher. So I graduated and taught chemistry at a high school for 5 years. And then there's this little thing called COVID that happened. And it made teaching miserable. So I got into teaching because I really loved, the face-to-face interaction with the kids, building relationships with them, helping make them better. And then COVID happened. There's a lot of virtual teaching. There's a lot of weird schedules back and forth, and made me really just disenfranchised with it. Then my friend I'd gone to Bible study with, he'd started a company, and he said, would you be interested in trying to come do real estate with me? And I'm like, well, I'm only making a teacher's salary, so I don't feel like I have to do that well to cover that. And I'm already miserable. So yeah, I'll try it. I'll do it. And I made that switch, and I haven't looked back.
Now that COVID's over and you could go back to teaching, why haven't you looked back? What do you like about doing it better than teaching, it sounds like?
So the things I like better about real estate is the freedom of schedule you get a little bit more. And the pay. I make a lot more doing real estate than I did as a teacher. So freedom of schedule, pay, and it's just I guess it's something that I liked with teaching as well. There's a lot of thinking that can go into doing real estate as a business, figuring out specifically how to make a deal work, underwriting, all those things. I love that. that's what I loved about teaching as well, is like, how can I convey this information in a way that's interesting, but you still get the point? So I think those are the reasons why I would stay in real estate versus going back to teaching.
Got it. Well, I'm glad you found something that's really enjoyable for you and pays well.
Yeah.
That always helps too.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for breaking down a really great business. Would you have any advice for somebody who's looking to do their first deal but just been listening to a lot of podcasts, haven't made it happen yet?
I would say the easiest first step that you can do is locate somebody in your market that's doing deals. You can usually do that by going to like a local RIA or like some kind of real estate meetup. You could probably find out about that like on Facebook or something. Go to that, meet some people, and then find somebody that you can add value to, and then do a few deals with them. Like you can, which is what I did before I jumped in, is I listened to a lot of podcasts. I listened to a lot of those things. But until you don't really know it until you get into it. You don't know real estate until you actually start doing it, until you start talking to sellers, until you start rehabbing or doing whatever. And so it can be super daunting if you're going to do that all by yourself, right? Like most people don't have 30 grand to, go jump into a deal. They don't have the relationships. They don't know where to go. They don't know any of that. So the really best way you could do is kind of get some like on the job training by helping somebody else with their portfolio or help someone else with their business. And then you can you'll learn so much faster. You're not going to have, it's very low entry for you. And I think that's the best way to like kind of jumpstart your career of getting into real estate.
Well, thanks for the advice. I hope somebody out here is listening will go to a meetup and try to find somebody they can provide value to as an entryway to learn a little bit and help some people out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.